Welcome into the Illini Inquirer Podcast. It is Jeremy Werner, Derek Piper, live at State Farm Center as we just saw Illinois win its Big Ten home opener 86-80 over Wisconsin. A bounce-back victory for Illinois after a disappointing loss in overtime at Northwestern on Friday. And Illinois got a big boost from Tre White, a season-best 23 points, added 8 rebounds with that. And what a performance by the backcourt. As Kasparas, Jakucionis, 24 points, oh hum. I know you have a stat on what he's doing against high-major opponents, Derek, and it is impressive. Kylan Boswell continues to play well. 19 points in this one, 6 assists, several rebounds, a couple of steals. And it was really that trio. I don't know if there was a lot of great games from anybody else. Tomislav Visic had 9 points, but didn't shoot it well, 11 rebounds. And Illinois never really was able to just kind of step on Wisconsin's throats, Derek, but they do find a way to get a victory over a team that's not the number 20 team in the country right now. Now they've lost 3 straight games, so they won't stay there. But a nice home win and a nice bounce back, Derek. So I'll give it to you. What stood out most for you?
Yeah, I think Tre White finding himself and really playing with a lot of activity in a game where you bring in Tanjay, you bring in Blackwell, and there's not a ton around those guys outside of – I mean, I know Klesmit's a player that we've gotten used to and can make some threes certainly, but he just played like a veteran. He played like a guy who's making his 64th career start at the high major level and played with that kind of energy and burst. And Brad's been banging the drum forever, it seems like, especially in recent weeks, about offensive rebounding, and was really displeased with it off of the Northwestern game. And Tre was just all over the offensive glass, both for himself in terms of scoring opportunities, but had a really nice save out of bounds to Will Riley for an extra possession and finish. And that was a big part of Illinois' offense when they struggled to make threes early in the game, especially in the first half. And then I like the slashing ability late too. I thought, getting to the free throw line was a big deal and putting pressure on the rim. And that's one thing that if you wanted to nitpick Illinois' offense to this point, it's been a little bit live or die by the three. Not that, Kasparas, Jakucionis pull-ups and step-backs haven't been fantastic to watch, but for somebody to get downhill is a big deal. I mean, he drew the Carter-Gilmore matchup tonight a lot and attacked him, which he should. And Wisconsin doesn't have a lot of rim protection ultimately, so he stood out. But then also Illinois' backcourt's just awesome. So between KJ and Kylan continues to put quite a resume together as far as his defense, although Tre White also was on Tanjay, who came in as the second leading scorer in the Big Ten. So all of that combined, those three were the highlights for sure. And I know we can talk plenty about all of them, but yeah, I mean, awesome backcourt duo. Wisconsin has a pretty darn good one, but Illinois trumped it tonight, and then Tre White was a big X factor.
Yeah, let's talk about Tre White because obviously Kasparas and Boswell felt like stars of the game too, but Tre is different. We haven't seen this kind of night from him, especially against a high major opponent. And it just felt like he's barely made an impact in some of those big games with Will Riley being there, but it wasn't a Will Riley night, right? Like he's struggled a little bit tonight, only 5 points. But what Tre gave you defensively was one of the biggest surprises because last game you didn't want to put him on Martinelli. You didn't really want to put him on Barnheiser. And then this game, right from the tip, I kind of looked at you and I was like, are you surprised that he's on Tanjay, a 20-point per game scorer, guy who's gone for 41 in a game? I was surprised, and he did great. I know Boswell drew him sometimes, Kasparas drew him sometimes, and they all did really, really well. But Tre was the primary guy on John Tanjay, and he had 14 points and 5 of 15 shooting, and some of those came really late. He was 4 of 13 at one point. Like some of those points really came late for Tanjay. So I thought that was phenomenal to see that kind of defensive impact for Tre White. But you mentioned it, Derek. Like this team has been so live and die by the 3-point line, and they're good at it. I mean, they're a good 3-point shooting team. But how do you get those easy points to put away somebody? Those points that they weren't able to get against Northwestern. Like you can't always live on Kasparas step backs, even though he seems to make way more of them than he should. But he's phenomenal at that. But you got to get some easy points. It's the points Terrence Shannon got, right? Like those free throws. We're running who would be that guy. Boswell's starting to get there a little bit more. Kasparas draws a lot of fouls. But if you can have a big wing that can just kind of bully some people at times, get to the free throw line, I just loved his confidence. Like that looked like the most confident we have seen Tre White so far. So he's not going to get 23 every night, but the fact that he's got that in his game, the fact that, he's confident enough and that Brad Underwood played him a little bit more, right? I thought that was important because I get why you don't want to take Will Riley off the court, but Will Riley can't bully people and get to the free throw line so easily.
Absolutely. Yeah, and loved hearing from Brad afterwards that his mentality was, maybe you, after not playing that much in the second half and overtime against Northwestern, and you kind of see the fact that Will Riley in a lot of these high major games, pretty much all of them up until this one, has taken the reins outside of, Tre's in that starting group, but it's really been the Will Riley show on the wing over him down the stretch in particular, that Tre was motivated to be active and to just give more versus maybe start to wonder, am I in the right spot? What's my role going to look like? And those type of things maybe go into a shell versus, this is a guy that ever since he got here has talked about trying to help this team win, want to be a part of something involved with winning. And that's a winning response. It's a winning buy-in to be able to be active in film and go out and have a great practice. And Brad said, he looked like the best player on the court on Sunday, and he gave a lot tonight, obviously, and being able to do that. So, yeah, I mean, he's 21 years old. He's got good physicality to him, and made some clutch free throws. And yeah, I mean, he had Blackwell for a little bit as far as an assignment. He had Tanjay. Both those guys have drawn fouls at a pretty good rate. In particular, Tanjay, and the fact that he didn't shoot a free throw in the first half. It was into the second half until he finally got to the line. What did he shoot?
He shot 2 of 2.
2 free throws. I mean, he leads the country in free throw shooting, both in terms of makes and attempts. So great on him, great on Kylan. And yeah, I love what Tre did tonight for sure.
Listen, I know Wisconsin or Illinois shot a lot of free throws late because Wisconsin was fouling to just prolong the game. It's pretty amazing that Illinois had more free throws in the second half than Wisconsin, given that Illinois had 10 in the first 8 minutes of that second half was pretty amazing. And Wisconsin really kind of screwed themselves out of a chance late in that game, going only 12 of 19 from the free throw line. But I wanted to say that Tre White got 7 of 8 in that second half. And those felt like huge points to kind of support what Kasparas was again trying to do to close the game. So I just thought having that element was so big for Illinois. We will get to the others in this game, and I know there's one veteran that is really struggling, but it was great to see the 2 veterans in Tre White and Kylan Boswell really step up. I don't know if we can say any more about Kylan Boswell's defense, Derek. He was just making people uncomfortable the entire game. But what I asked most of my line of questioning after this game was about the backcourt pairing of Jakucionis and Boswell, because we are seeing those guys get comfortable together and seeing how good they are together. Because now you're starting to see Kylan assert himself more offensively with the ball in his hands. It's not always KJ, and I think that makes each other better. But then KJ's just been way better defensively than I ever thought he would be throughout the entire year. He just battles more. He's strong, and he just cares more than I thought a guy who's such a prolific offensive player would be. But it feels like, Trent and Io were trying to feel each other out, right? Matthew Meyer and Terrence Shannon at times trying to figure each other out. Last year with Damask and Shannon. So we kind of know that that's a process. I asked Brad Underwood about it. He said they're further along than I thought. The fact that we're 9 games in and this duo feels like it is off and running, Derek, that's dangerous for the rest of the Big Ten, because these are 2 guys who can play it. I mean, obviously Kasparas, it looks like a top 10 draft pick right now. It looks like he could be the first one since Darren there at Illinois. But Kylan is asserting himself as one of the best 2-way guards in the Big Ten, certainly, and probably the country.
Yeah, I give Kylan a lot of credit for adapting, and he's played both on and off the ball in the past, but it did start out to where he was a little tentative offensively this season and ultimately didn't have the shot going either. We still haven't seen him shoot the 3 up to his full capabilities. I would imagine that gets going here, but both in the Arkansas game and then tonight, I felt like early in those ball games was really able to be more assertive, like you said, off the dribble and make some plays happen. He just made a lot of good reads with the ball in his hands. I thought the way he dished out assists tonight and also just kind of got into the paint and made things happen, that was good to see. And then we know what KJ can ultimately do, and that just allows Brad to pick certain matchups that he wants to attack, and those guys just kind of have a good feel about each other, and there's a synergy that's coming along for them that, like he said, does seem maybe a little bit ahead of schedule. So that's great to see. And then, yeah, I agree with you defensively. KJ has not been somebody you can just hunt a bunch and given up a lot there. And, Kylan just has been outstanding. Yeah, I mean, you go through the list. Sears was the primary option and held him scoreless, and Boogie Flan goes 2 for 12. And I did a really good job on Barnheiser, which that was a matchup that kind of surprised me a little bit that Brad was willing to give up 4 inches of size and say, hey, we're going to put Boswell on him. And it took 23 shots for Barnheiser to score 17. Then he's a big part of the effort tonight on Tanjay as well. So,
and Blackwell. I mean, Blackwell only had 6 shot attempts tonight. I thought that was a lot of Kylan on him as well.
Yeah, and they're playing the numbers game. I mean, when you're in a situation where Crowell's taking more shots than Tanjay at one point in the game, and Gilmore shooting some, which he made, and Winter as well. But that's the guards, and Kylan's a big part of that, of not creating opportunities, not getting beat off the dribble, not fouling, those type of things. And you can just see the way he lights up. I mean, talking to him yesterday at availability, he lights up when he knows that he's got a big matchup on his hands. And that's just a huge asset. But no, you asked the question to Brad. I think it's a great point, is those two together as a combo, making it happen early on is great news for that growth. And you're talking about an 18 and 19-year-old. But Kylan definitely established himself as a veteran. And as Greg Gard said, KJ doesn't look like a freshman.
Yeah. The last thing I want to get to before we get to some of the other guys in this matchup is they got the response about offensive rebounding. The numbers didn't look as lopsided as they did in the first half by the end of this game, because Illinois gave up a couple offensive rebounds on free throws. We'll get to that here in a moment. But 15 to 11 offensive rebounds. Illinois second chance points 16 to 12. But it was a huge reason they had a lead at halftime. But I think one of the biggest stats is 40 to 29 rebounds. Like, Tomislav Ivisic did not have a very great game, right? I thought both offensively and defensively. Offensively, 4 of 12, 1 of 5 from 3, but the biggest one there is 3 of 7 in the paint, basically, for him. Just that back down game's not great, but he had 11 rebounds, while Steven Crowell had 0. So I will give Tommy that. Like, he was the tougher center tonight. Like, we've seen Crowell have good games. He's having a bad year. And Ivisic just dominated him on the glass, 11 to 0 there. I thought that's the difference in the rebounding in the entire game. So I just thought Illinois did a great job attacking the glass. Tre White, 8 boards. Kylan Boswell digging in there with 6. Kasparas with 5. Like, it's basically those 4 players that were really good for Illinois. And Merez came in, of course, rebounded well. But I just thought they were tougher at times in this game. And that's good to see after Northwestern kind of smacked you around the last couple minutes of regulation and overtime.
No doubt. Really good response. And you're going against a team that had some want to as well, because, they had lost their last 2, and now obviously it's 3. But, Crowell's struggles for Wisconsin are hard to overcome, or just in terms of you step up in competition. You got a good front court. You got some physicality and rebounding to you. That's obviously hard for them to deal with. Their front court leaves a decent amount to be desired between the current version of Crowell, and obviously, they kind of go small with Winter and spotting him at the 5. So I think that's one of the common themes. If you really wanted to dig into the 9-game winning streak for Illinois in this series, is just more strength, more physicality, more athleticism for Illinois. And it's not Kofi Coburn in there tonight, but it is a good effort ultimately. And even Ivisic on an off night offensively did do enough as far as the glass goes. So that's what you want. You want to out physical somebody, and this is a team you can do that to. And they answered the challenge for what Brad tasked them to do, because when you're going to shoot that many threes, and if you're not going to make 40% of them, those are long rebounds. Those are opportunities to really pair that together with second and third chances, and that's a big part of the profile ever since Brad showed up on the scene, for sure.
Yeah, you talk about this team finding a way to get easy buckets when maybe they don't have the Terrence Shannon. Like, Tre White obviously is a part of that. Boswell's a part of that, but getting offensive rebounds is an easy way to get that. All right, we will talk about the topic we knew everyone would want us to talk about. We'll get to that. We'll talk about the number 1 matchup on Saturday as well. But first, let's hear from one of our great sponsors.
Notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do lists aren't? Power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. From breakfast to dinner and anything in between, Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Whether you like routine or you enjoy mixing things up, Factor has you covered with 35 different delicious meals every week and over 60 additional convenience options you can add to your box like keto cookies, pressed juices, and smoothies. Factor lets you do you. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. And check this out. Factor is cheaper than takeout and dining out. Put the money you save towards holiday shopping or reaching your financial goals. So don't let shorter days slow you down. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. So right now, head to factormeals.com/50Illini and use code 50Illini to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50Illini at factormeals.com/50Illini to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active.
All right, back at State Farm Center, Derek Piper, Jeremy Werner. I just saw this come across my Twitter timeline. My buddy Tommy sent it, so thank you, Tommy. In the last 10 seasons, 2 Division I freshmen have had a 4-game span with 80-plus points, 25-plus rebounds, 20-plus assists, 15-plus threes made. One of them is Kasparas Jakucionis. You want to guess who the other one is, Derek? I'll give you one guess. That's a lot. 80 points, 24 rebounds, 20 assists, 15 threes in the last 10 seasons. He is an NBA star. I don't know if I'd say superstar, but he's a star.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
No. I'm not supposed to say this because I don't have any hair, but he doesn't have the best hair game.
Trae Young.
Yes. Trae Young and Kasparas Jakucionis. That's pretty good company for Kasparas. And
no doubt.
Dude, I watched the guy. Like he did whenever he gets on a big man, the ball's going up. Like the ball is going up. He's going to find a way to get some more space and put it up. And he had one where he missed, but I just kind of looked at you and I got excited watching it. Like he's clearly the best freshman we've covered, and we've covered Io and Kofi. But that looks like a top 10 draft pick and a guy who I think in a great draft, Derek, is going to be in the conversation for like top 7, top 6. Like he is. Enjoy this while he's here because he's only going to be here 1 year and it is special. Greg Gard said afterwards, he doesn't play like a freshman. No, he plays like a junior, senior that's been doing this entire life. And that's what's good about some of these European guys coming over here. I mean, Tommy and Kasparas have had no problem handling this level of competition.
Yeah, he makes a lot look easy. And the handle package is obviously part of that, and the step back and all of that. And I mean, the one he hit against Matthew Nicholson the other night looked like the Luka on Rudy Gobert in the playoffs, right? If he gets somebody like that on skates, it's probably going up on a step back 3, and I can live with that if I'm Illinois, obviously. So I mean, I ran the stats: 4 high major games, 3 of those against ranked opponents, 20.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 55% from the field, 48% from 3 over the last 2 games. He's I think 10 for 17 from 3 or somewhere close to that.
10 for 18 from 3 the last 2 games. The last 3 games or 4 games, I'm doing math in my head. He is 15 for 27 from 3 the last 4 games.
Man. Yeah, the shot making is supreme, and he's getting fouled on some of those attempts. The way you got to try to run him off the line is really impressive, and it's a guy that's only going to get better, only going to learn from some of his turnovers and mistakes and whatnot. But just imagine how much more polished he'll be as you get into the real meat of Big Ten play in February and all that. So that's really impressive. And I'm not saying that he's not going to still have maybe some growing pains here and there, but this is different than, I would assume it took some time. You think about the freshman stretch that he had at Maui and the bragging rights game, although we haven't got there yet. And that one's always a little wonky for Illinois here recently. But
Missouri looks pretty decent too.
They do beating Kansas. So, but yeah, you just got to appreciate it and understand it's only going to be a 1-year deal. And he might, seeing Sam Vecini put him at 6 going into the year, and like, man, that's so high, but he is really, really good. And
he looks like number 6 right now. He looks like
could even be higher. Yeah, shoot.
Just if there weren't a Dylan Harper, Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey in this draft, like I'd be like, yes, he's a top 5 pick. It's just one of those drafts where it's so loaded. But can you imagine him with some of these NBA centers? Be ridiculous. All right. SRQ, it's $5 super chat. There's so much of this in our chat on the live YouTube, and we knew we'd get here, but he asked the question, please give me a reason why Hummerkaus gets the minutes he is getting. His shooting is bad enough, but his defense is even worse. It has been a rough go for Ben Hummerkaus the last couple games. I still believe in him as a shooter, but he is 2 for 14 the last 2 games from 3. He had just 1 rebound tonight, 4 points, 1 of 5 from the field, all threes, 4 fouls. One of them was just awful. After Illinois had basically gotten into the bonus, he gives up an offensive rebound on a free throw, fouls immediately, and gives them 2 free throws. And it's just like Illinois is not able to get away there. And Brad keeps saying he's the highest rated defender on the team. I don't believe it. I need to see these grade outs. Somebody give them to me. I need the synergy numbers, Isaac Trotter. I can't believe that is the case. I understand why Ben Hummerkaus is on the floor, though, because he stretches the floor. He opens up things. You have to respect him as a shooter because at some point he is going to hit 4 or 5 in a game. He's a very good shooter. Obviously didn't show tonight, but I understand that. It opens up things for Kasparas, opens up things for obviously Will, but Tre tonight, Kylan Boswell. But I can't buy the stuff defensively. Like defensively, he's not been good there.
I watched the Northwestern game live. I went back and rewatched it. There is no possible way that he could be the highest graded defender in that game. That's what Brad says, and he's sold it here recently again.
I need evidence. I know he's probably supporting his guy because they need Ben Hummerkaus.
Yeah.
They need him this season, right? So you don't want to bury him on the bench and not start him, and because you need him. Like he's such a big part of what your team is. He's not a strong defender, and he hasn't been a strong rebounder.
Exactly. Yeah. And Brad has gotten on him about the rebounding and led into him at one point during the game for not grabbing a board. And then, later that was a costly give up, which obviously you didn't lose the game because of it, but he's struggling bad. And I think even offensively, like when they dropped the first play for him, he kind of, I'm going to shoot this shot regardless of how close the defender is. He misses really badly off the backboard, takes another tough one in the corner. And it's a guy fighting a little bit, and maybe in his head. And offensively, I agree with everything Brad is saying. I do think he's an elite shooter. I do think he'll get going and can rattle off 4, 5, 6 in a game. Ultimately, I'm a little surprised that in comparison to kind of preseason expectations, you go back to the summer, you look at who he was at Evansville, that Brad doesn't want him taking any 2s. I'm not saying that, mid-range 2s, I'm surprised Brad doesn't want that. I thought he'd be a booty ball option guy, and they really have strayed away from that and not even really done any of it in game action. So must not be something they liked in practice ultimately for that. But he's a floor spacer. He's a guy that attracts attention even when he's not having the ball, even when he's not shooting it great. And I do think he'll get that going. Defensively, it's not good. It's not going to get better, I don't think. Can he be a little bit tougher as far as rebounding goes and improve that? I think that's possible. I mean, he's 6'9", and he's not rail thin. So there's some of that in there, but some of it's kind of baked into what you expected. You're trading offense, giving up some defense, and but when it's not working offensively, then you're really getting a net negative, and it's the Ron Burgundy gif. It's the I don't believe you with the defense, and I don't know.
Smoking cigarettes on that one, Brad. I mean Ben Hummerkaus, 2 for 14 the last 2 games from 3, Derek, and he's still shooting 36% from 3 on the season. So like he's a great shooter, and they need him. He needs to play minutes. The Northwestern thing was egregious, and Brad finally owned up on that. In the press conference yesterday, like he had to get Merez in there. I'm not saying the rest of the game. You had to play him a couple more minutes to spell. I just didn't think it was fair to Ben in that matchup, and the fact that you weren't trapping and trying to get the ball out of Martinelli's hands and make somebody else beat you. Like that was my problem tonight. Yes, Ben didn't follow up with another game. There were some issues there. I think Merez just deserves a little bit more minutes, but you're still going to play Ben Hummerkaus 25 minutes. Like if everyone's saying you got to sit him on the bench, no, because you need him. He's an important part of your team. So it would take a month of this for me to probably get away from that, Derek.
I fully agree with that. Yeah, and you can tell he is just trying to, whether he's sending a message to Ben through the media or also just trying to calm the noise around. He's trying to just instill confidence in him and ride this wave out. And I get why he's doing it. I don't think that for as much as people want to see Merez, and I'm with him getting more minutes, we're not to the point where this identity shift is going to happen. Where I know in previous seasons, Brad has made sometimes major pivots to from who he wanted to be going in and then who they become ultimately. I don't think he wants it to be a Merez and Tommy lineup primarily and to play two bigs ultimately. Obviously, otherwise at the 4, you could play Tre there and play Will and Tre a lot more together.
Can I be honest with you? I thought Tommy looked gassed at times in this game. And I thought that's why he was short on some of his shots. But I thought there was time to get Merez in for Tommy at some points in this game. He played 30 minutes, but there were some long stretches between breaks, and it just felt like Tommy was laboring a little bit there. I'll give it to him. He kept playing on the glass, but just some of his offense didn't seem there. So that's when I would have liked a little bit more Merez in that moment. But Merez played 13 minutes, was a +5. He always seems to be a positive when he's on the court, but he was 0 for 3 from the field. But you just know what you're getting with him. So it's nice to have that, but for anyone that thinks Ben Hummerkaus needs to be a 10 to 12 minute a game player, that's not going to happen on this team.
No, and there hasn't been a reason to pull that lever yet. I know Northwestern, it was matchup, but also game plan. The game plan was faulty. Like he could have, when he was on Martinelli, gotten more support, more help from a help defender to force the ball out of his hands. But then also Ben didn't play it well when he was off the ball, kind of coming over there into the paint. But that was something that it was 2-part and didn't do well when he was defending on an island. And ultimately that was a huge reason why they fell apart there late. And I mean, it's even Marcus Mask had limitations defensively, obviously, as we knew, and there was enough of a trade-off there for it to make obviously a lot of sense for Illinois to push forward. I'm not saying that Ben's going to get to a point where he's even close to that this year, but I do think, again, floor spacing wise, 3-point shooting wise, he was a big part of their plans and will continue to be. And I understand it. I mean, that type of a shooter around KJ, and we're still so early in this thing. I could get a guy needing this transition period. And it's a reminder that he really almost barely played D1 basketball. Didn't even get a full season at Evansville last year. Right. So, but you hope he finds it because I think you're going to need him.
Yeah, you hope he finds it, kind of like Matthew Meyer. Took time to find it, right? Like you hope he can find that at some point. All right. The bench, only 7 points from them tonight. Dre Gibbs-Allhorn, 1 of 4, 2 points. He has not made a big impact. He's still fouling a lot. Will Riley, 5 points, was a +7 in 15 minutes, but a couple turnovers. Jake Davis continues to play, and that's why I wanted to bring up. Jen said this, saw this on Thanksgiving and haven't had a chance to ask sooner. Jake Davis is ahead of Kerry Booth in the rotation. What's going on there? She asked if Kerry Booth is the Terrence Brooks. I don't think the expectations for Kerry Booth were Terrence Brooks level. By the way, congratulations to Derek Piper on his all Big Ten draft win. It was an emphatic. I think he got 5 of 6 were all Big Ten, so that was pretty awesome. But I think we all expected Terrence Brooks to be a starting cornerback. I don't think any of us expected Kerry Booth to start on this team, and it was more like the second year, what can he be? But yeah, Jake Davis playing ahead of him, a little surprising. And Jake's not adding a ton, right? But it is a surprising early lead for Jake Davis to take over that role.
I don't love it personally as I'm watching it, to be completely honest with you. Look, Kerry, as far as the early indications of this season, has not shown to be a guy who deserves more minutes. He's got a ways to go to get comfortable, to establish himself as what his role is going to look like. I mean, I think 3-point shooting has got to be something that he does well, and up to this point, it hasn't clicked into place for him. Needs to get stronger, certainly, and it's like you said, more of a longer term play with him, who he's going to be in maybe another year. Although, in college basketball and obviously just collegiate athletics in general, year to year, it's not guaranteed. I know that Jake's got the ability to stretch the floor. Speaking of defense, he gives up a lot there. And I wouldn't try to like give Jake Davis his minutes to carry. It's more carry, I think, is its own separate thing as far as, trying to work through this process and prove to be worthy to get on the court. I don't know if guys need enough of a breather to get Jake in there.
Let's be honest.
I haven't liked what it's looked like.
This needs to be an 8-man rotation.
Yeah.
Right? Like Jake had 5 minutes tonight. You can survive with that. That whatever. You 9th guy gets 5 minutes.
That's fair.
Okay. I just thought Brad went to that hockey lineup early on, and he was talking about needing his bench a little bit more. I think as the season goes along, you're going to have Dre Gibbs, Allhorn, Will Riley, and Morez Johnson off the bench. I think that's what it's going to be. And some games maybe you need Jake Davis because Will or Trey gets into foul trouble or Ben gets into foul trouble, and you just need some minutes. And Jake plays hard, right? Like that's going to get him on the court. He's taking threes confidently to make it his 2 tonight, and he will attack the glass. I think he's a good passer. I do think he's a good passer. So, but yeah, defensively, you're giving up some there, and it just feels like he's kind of running around with his head cut off at some points. But hey, that's kind of what I would expect from a Jake Davis at this point. So, no knock on him. I think this is an 8-man rotation moving forward.
Yeah, I fully agree with that for sure. And you got to get to the point. You hope that Dre continues to. I say continues. He needs to come on and establish himself as somebody that deserves, and maybe it won't play out to where it happens, but 10 to 15 minutes consistently and can be maybe a defensive spark plug or come in and make a couple of shots. And we know he's capable of it, but he's got to string it together and be consistent. Morez, you're really encouraged by what he's shown. And obviously we know what he can do, but yeah. In some really, really tight games, and in terms of like meaningful, significant minutes, you're right. It will be 8. It won't be maybe what we question going into the year. Obviously, part of that is Ty Rodgers redshirting, but will it be a 9-man? Will you really stretch it out? No one would ever probably think a 10-man would be realistic, but 8 seems about right. And some nights, as Brad has shown early on, it could be less than that. It was kind of in the second half and overtime at Northwestern, it was pretty much 6. So,
all right, Derek, it's almost midnight, so 4 days. Number 1 Tennessee is coming into this building. Brad knew Rick Barnes' team would be really good when he scheduled this home and home. And last year was a fun game. It was kind of back and forth. Illinois had a chance, but Tennessee just pulled away. Foul trouble really hurt Illinois in that one. But Tennessee's 8-0. They've played a pretty decent schedule, but Illinois is probably their toughest opponent they have had so far. And Illinois hasn't beaten number 1 since Indiana in 2013 with that huge win for a program and team that needed it badly. Illinois is 3-22 all time against number 1, but they are 3-5 at home, 3-4 in this building at State Farm Center. Of course, everyone remembers the Wake Forest game. Was it Michigan State back in 1979? I believe it was.
The Eddie Johnson shot against the Magic Johnson team.
So, will it be a memorable one on Saturday, Derek? What do you think about this matchup against a team that looks physically imposing and very veteran-laden lineup with several guys who have transferred in there?
It's early, but they have a national championship type of profile. If you look at their analytics, they're top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. They're so physically tough. They're going to get into you. You worry about turnovers. You worry about them making KJ uncomfortable and cutting off driving lays. I mean, Jamae Mayshak is one of the best defenders in all of college basketball, and I know that he's going to be obviously very impactful. They can just overwhelm you with how athletic they are, with how physical they are. And then, Chaz Lanier comes in, and you wonder about what this team's going to feel post Dalton Connect, where some previous Rick Barnes teams in Tennessee have been really offensively challenged. He's burying threes at darn near a 50% clip and is really carrying that torch up to this point. So will it be a memorable one? It obviously could be. Illinois has the range of outcomes when you shoot this many threes. If you make a high percentage of them, then you can really be tough to deal with. And you pack 16,000 plus in here and the crush and everything. I mean, it could happen. I mean, on the road.
You know what excites me, Derek, about this matchup? Illinois is going to have the best player on the floor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maine just asked, you guys see lottery? No doubt. Like Kasparas Jakucionis is a lottery pick. It is just a matter of how high he goes. Like they will have the best player on the floor. Of course, he's 18 compared to some of these 23 and 24-year-olds on Tennessee. And I just think Tennessee's toughness, physicality is going to be a lot for Illinois to be able to overcome what they do defensively. How does that disrupt Kasparas? Does he have a stretch of 3 turnovers in 4 minutes or whatever it is? But I do think the backcourt can adjust to that. Kylan's been through a lot of these battles. I think that's going to be really important. Tommy, make some threes. Ben, you got to make some threes. I think that's what it comes down to for this team. But if you can get some toughness like that from Tre again around those guards, and Hummerkaus hits a couple threes, maybe give him a run and you have a chance. But I just love that Illinois has the opportunity. I love that Brad scheduled this game. I love these home and homes. I love that Alabama is going to come to United Center next year. You have these opportunities then to have these moments. And you feel like you got a team that at least has a chance, Derek, especially with the home crowd behind them. 4:30 tip-off, Fox. People got all day to kind of prepare for this game. Feels like a football game. So I'm getting pumped up thinking about just covering that game and what it could mean for this program. But just that Illinois is – no, they're not ranked coming into this, but if you did a ranking midweek, they'd be back into it. Like these are 2 teams with really high expectations that you put on a show on Saturday.
Yeah. This is everything you want, and it's kind of crazy that it's been more than a decade since number one's even walked in here, since Indiana showed up and went down against the John Gross team. It hasn't happened all that often, and before that, it was the Jared Solinger Ohio State squad back in, I think, 2010
Big Ten just hasn't had those teams, right? Michigan, were they ever number one? Michigan State always felt like they were like 5 or 6 with some of those teams, like – Beeline's teams were pretty good, but it was those Stad teams that were always number one, right? Yep. Or obviously the Indiana team was Zeller and Oladipo, but just haven't had a lot of opportunities. So the fact that it comes up and you got that opportunity, it's awesome.
Yeah, it is. You did catch Purdue number one last year, but it was in Mackey.
Yeah.
They didn't get them when they were top ranked coming here to Champaign, but it's a rare occasion, and it is one of those, they're still showing the Tyler Griffey layup. Obviously, there's an epic finish, so there's a reason for that. But they're still showing that on the highlight reels, and everybody's obviously going to talk about the Wake Forest game forever, and so on and so forth. So it is a chance to add to that, to make another lasting memory, and it's going to garner national attention. People are talking about Kasparas Jakucionis. Not that tonight changed that, but it does add more fuel to that fire where NBA draft people – national college basketball are really, really impressed by what he's doing. And if he shows up and continues to produce at this level against Tennessee, then the ceiling is the roof. The whole Michael Jordan, he can do anything in this sport because that's how good Tennessee's defense is, and they'll throw a lot at him. It'll be tough for him, but he's really talented.
Yeah, I guarantee the Gavonis, the Vicentis are going to be watching this game, right? And know how to NBA scouts. I'm wondering what that'll look like coming here on Saturday, how many guys are actually here. 2 things we just haven't hit on. Like, that's a huge bounce-back performance, Derek, to not be 0-2 and not put yourself in a 2-game hole in the Big Ten, because I still think this team is capable of making a run in Big Ten contention. Michigan State are both 2-0. UCLA is 2-0, and those are really good teams. A couple more veterans on that team, but I feel like the Big Ten champion is going to have 6+ losses. So you had one on the road. That one stinks, and it could end up stinging by the end of the year. But to get that is huge. And Mark brings it up. 9 straight victories against Wisconsin. Like, you and I covered a lot of bad Illinois-Wisconsin games. I started covering this program when I was in junior in the University of Illinois in 2007. And they won 4 games from 2007 to 2019 against Wisconsin. They lost 22 of them, including 15 straight when Bo just had that thing humming. And then Iowa DeSumo finally ended it. And Illinois won 9 straight against Wisconsin. So it's just another one of those moments you got to sit back. It's like, oh, Illinois can beat Michigan now. Oh, Illinois can beat Wisconsin regularly now. It's another moment for Brad Underwood to kind of flex what he's done.
Big time. Yeah, that's one of the programs where Brad takes his job that you're looking up at and try to be in their company and try to, climb up to where Wisconsin is, where Michigan State is, where Purdue is. And the fact that you've owned them like that, it says a lot, and how the dynamic is flipped. Will Illinois get to 15 straight like Wisconsin had it on Illinois? I mean, that's still a ways to go. He's still got multiple years to get there. But, yeah, no doubt. I mean, you can go through the list of the Kaminskis of the world, the Ethan Happs, all the players that Wisconsin's had. It's just been a really, really they've been the picture of consistency for a long stretch. Obviously, under Bo Ryan, they were – you wake up any fall and just write them into your top 5 of the league. And they've even had some of that under guard as well. But, yeah, it says a lot about Illinois. Again, I think the talent upgrade has played a big part in that, big factor, where you could throw Kofi in the middle against them. You had Eye on the perimeter and on and on and on. It's just a different realm for Illinois where they were for a long time. And that domination is going the other way, and that's a really good program to do it to. You're not talking about Minnesota. You're not talking about Rutgers. Even though Rutgers has a different level,
on the road, especially
different level of talent, and they've been a tough place to go win as well. But yeah, that's a good one for sure.
Maryland's been the one that's just been hard for Brad. Brandon, what's the KenPom spread for Tennessee? He has 74-71. Tennessee, so home does a lot of work there, and Illinois got talent. We'll wrap up with this though. Illini Bubba, can we play the what if we win game? Where would we rank national attention? Yeah, you get plenty of national attention. I'm not an AP voter, but if Illinois beats the number 20 team and the number 1 team in the same week, that's a top 15 team, I would imagine, especially when you got a win over Arkansas as well. Be 3 of the best wins. Alabama's got a ridiculous resume already. Tennessee's got a good resume, but they do have the loss to Northwestern, which still would hurt them, but I think they'd jump into the top 15.
I think that'd be warranted. They're already 15th on KenPom after tonight's win. Their net ranking going into tonight was, I know it's very early for that, but still 12th. So the metrics really like them and would obviously like them a lot more with that win. So
good point, Derek. The AP rankings doesn't matter. The net rankings what's matter. You'd be top 10 in the country in the net.
Yeah, right. And that'd be a no doubt quad 1A win. By the way, you're going to like the fact that Arkansas beat Michigan. I mean, you'll get a chance at Michigan too. So, but that win will looks better, at the end of tonight than it did, when you beat them, because that's a nice win on a neutral for them, and you want to make sure that still stands as a quad 1 up for you. So, yeah, I could argue for. I think top 15 is a good range. If you're a human voter, the computers will put you, maybe even venturing into the top 10 or close. But yeah, the Northwestern win loss will hold you back a little bit. But to kind of circle back what you were saying, how big this was, because you have Tennessee Saturday, because bragging rights, Missouri looks better, and it's always been tricky. You could have been staring at, oh no, we could lose 3 in a row if we don't beat Tennessee, and then there's a lot of pressure on bragging rights. This is a nice calm the nerves win and nice to secure that under the belt. And I think if you're just doing Big Ten race in particular, when you resume it, you're at Oregon in early January. That's a tough game to not start 0-3. So you really wanted this one, and good to have it for sure.
It's kind of what I've thought about last year. Like anytime you thought like, oh, that's a bad loss, how do they respond to it? They always responded. They never lost back-to-back games last year. Like this year, I think that'll probably happen because it's a younger team. But I just that was so huge last year that you didn't let a losing streak happen, and you found a way to bounce back. And that's credit to the staff, it's credit to the players, and Tre White and Kylan Boswell were huge parts of that tonight, and then just a special player in Kasparas, Jakucionis. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you to everyone watching on the live YouTube. Hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell on your way out. We really appreciate you guys joining us for the late nighters here after midnight here on December 11th now at the State Farm Center. But if you're listening on the podcast, we appreciate you guys. Follow us, rate us, review us wherever you get that. We got plenty coming up on IlliniInquirer.com. Player grades. Joey's writing about Tre White. Derek's writing about this backcourt duo. And we got some football recruiting stuff that is happening transfer-wise. So check all that out at IlliniInquirer.com. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer.